indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item of business is the approval of the minutes. I'm going to warn everybody a little heads up. We have a very short agenda today, so if this, you might not even want to take your coat off. It'll be quick.
We have to provide more feedback to you.
That would be good. Good. Maybe on mayor's or on citizens' comments we can add some time in. Anyway, approval of minutes. Minutes of the town council meeting of January 7th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any changes, comments?
I wasn't here.
No.
Can't comment.
Okay. And I've looked through it. I don't have
I
it.
don't have
Okay.
anything.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mayor's update. I only have a couple quick things. One, obviously, to explain why there's only 4 of us here today. Stephanie Tillerson, our town administrator, and Marianne Connolly, our councilwoman, are at the MASC meeting up in Columbia, which is an annual meeting. And Marianne particularly chose to attend this year, so they're at that meeting today. And also, Claus is, I think, on a plane to New Zealand. Yeah, on a plane to New Zealand. So, but we do have a quorum. And if we run into any problems, we have a former council member come in, so we can probably draft her up here.
We have a former mayor.
And we have former mayor too, so we're in good shape. But anyway, we do have a quorum. It takes 3, so we're good. The second thing I just wanted to mention, because we've discussed this at a number of meetings in the recent months, is our very large project for the repaving, reconstruction of the parkway. Those bids went out a few weeks ago and were to be back in by Thursday of last week. We are happy to say that we had 3 qualified bidders. I wish that all 3 of them had been probably more in line with what our expectations or hopes were in terms of pricing. Probably 2 of the 3 were. One was a bit of an outlier, but we do have bidders. Those bids are currently being evaluated. We have a meeting of the Public Works Committee tomorrow afternoon. That will be the first opportunity that the Public Works Committee, along with our contractor McCormick, will be sitting down looking at an analysis of those bids. So at this point, we're not ready to make any comment as to who may be the even though one is a low bidder, we still need to make sure we go through all of the aspects of their bid and make sure that we're comfortable with it. So that'll occur on tomorrow. And we have scheduled a special Ways and Means Committee followed by a special town council meeting for next week, Tuesday at what time? 3 o'clock, Tuesday at 3 o'clock. So we'll go into Ways and Means first. This will be the only item on that agenda. Then we'll go into Town Council. I apologize. We obviously don't like to try to hold, meetings outside of our regular schedule, but we very much are on a tight timeline with this project because we want to make sure that the work is done several weeks before the Memorial Day weekend. What we're trying to do is work around and ensure that this project is finished before we start moving into the high tourism season, because we're all sure that traffic management is going to be a challenge for the project. So again, next week, Tuesday, we'll review the final bidding. One other piece of information I just got yesterday. I was surprised, but I thought I would let people know. As you may be aware, the last several years, once this town hall was constructed, the voting location for Kiowa Island had been moved to this location. We just got notice, I just saw it yesterday, that the Election Commission has decided to move the location back to the Sandcastle. I do not know the reason why. We weren't asked or asked for our opinion. I know that a lot of people preferred this location because it's on the single floor and they weren't then having to deal with elevators and going upstairs in the sandcastles. So I have no idea what the story is behind it, but it's relevant because there is a Democratic presidential primary on February 29th, so this month. The last day to register, if you don't know, then you missed it, because that was January 30th. And there is no Republican presidential primary on that date. It is purely a Democratic primary. And maybe by that time, they'll have actually counted the votes in Iowa. And again, just for your own information, the other election dates that would affect us this year, the statewide primary election is June 9th. The general election is December 3rd. And the big one, the Town of Kiawah Island municipal election, is December 1st. So, and again, those are all at the Sandcastle. With that, citizens' comments. If anybody would like to speak on an item that is on the agenda today.
Actually, I think I have to wait.
Okay.
She
In,
didn't say anything about the tree. I thought she was going.
okay. Any other citizens' comments? All right, then we will move to the consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda. These are all contract approvals that were discussed and reviewed in the town council meeting of last week, Thursday. I would first ask the council members, is there any item here that you would like to have separated out from the consent agenda for individual discussion?
No. Read them all.
All right, then do I have a motion to approve items A through E on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
New business. We have 2 pieces of new business related to the addition of members on our Arts and Cultural Events Council and the State Accommodations Tax Committee. The first is to consider approval of the amendment of the Arts and Cultural Events Council and Arts Charter Board. What this amendment entails is increasing the membership, which before it was the Arts Council membership shall be comprised of at least 5, but not more than 9 members. And the Arts Council is asking approval to increase that number from 9 to 11. That is the sole change. And I think, although many times we're concerned that committees can get too big, this is one that I absolutely support, because one of the things that's really critical on this board is the people are not fungible. They each of them bring particular skills and capabilities. We have a committee that's aging, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, they're aging, and we're particularly vulnerable on that committee that if somebody leaves, it's very, very hard to find somebody who has that depth of knowledge around a particular music, a genre, and the willingness to participate in as much effort as this committee takes. So I think the advantage of going up an additional couple members is, again, to give us a little more room in there to be bringing new people in and getting them involved in the Arts Council. So that's a little bit of the rationale behind that change. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any conversation?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Then we have now the approval of the 2020 committee appointments for the Arts and Council members. These are an annual appointment that starts on February 1st and expires on January 31st of next year. And so the approval consists of the following people who currently are on the council. That would be Gary Rice, David Wool, Bill Lazard, Judy Chitwood, Becky Hillstad, Jody Rush, and Joan Collar. And it is also recommending the addition of 2 new members, Patrick Karen and Richard Ames. I do not know Patrick. I know Richard very well. He was actually a colleague of mine in our earlier oil industry days. And I really think both of these people, I understand, will bring a lot to the committee. So do I have a motion to approve?
I would move we approve these people.
Are any of the new ones in here? Just looking, didn't see it. Okay. And do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And then we have also a recommendation for approval of the membership for the 2020 State Accommodations Tax Committee. As you recall, this is a committee that generally meets one time a year. It is established by the state as the mechanism for initially recommending to town council the allocation of accommodations tax funds that emanate from the state accommodation tax collections. Under the law, the committee is limited to 7 members, of which at least 4 must be represent or be some way involved in the tourism business, accommodations tourism. 1 needs to be represented and involved in whatever town arts or sort of committees or activities, and then a couple kind of at-large residents. We have a couple changes this year. First of all, 4 current members will stay on the committee. Roger Warren representing the resort, Pam Harrington with Pam Harrington Exclusives, Don Semler, who is with Andel Inn, and also we will have a new member representing Kiowa Partners. Her name is Amy Anderson, and she is Kiowa Partners Marketing Director. We last year made a change and added the person who had that same or similar role. That person has gone through a job change, so this person is replacing. We also have Diana Mezzanotti, who will continue on the council for the 2nd year. She was a resident representative from last year. We have made a change. Gary Rice, who is the chair of our Arts Council Oversight Committee. For many years, Bill Bazard has been the member, and I want to thank Bill for his many years of service on this committee. He has been for long a serious and very involved member of the committee. But we did conclude that we wanted to make a change in how this position was created. 2 years ago, we created a Arts Council Oversight Committee, and we have concluded that having the person who chairs that committee is the appropriate person who should be then on the State Accommodations Tax Committee. So Gary Rice will be replacing Bill Blizzard. And then finally, Dan Hubbard, Kiowa resident who has been a resident representative of the community and also has acted as the committee chair for the last several years, has opted not to seek another term on the committee. Since he was a property owner, we needed to replace him with another property owner representative. And so we are recommending John Wilson, who you all know. John at one time was a council member on the town council. We are also making another change in that neither John nor Diane are, at this point anyway, interested in taking on the chairperson role of the committee, which I fully understand. We're going a different route, and so our vice chair, Chris Waddock, will act as a non-voting member, but he will then chair the committee. We are allowed by law to do that. He is not a voting member, so he does not make up one of the 7 positions on the committee, so we are still at 7. We still have otherwise meet the representation. But he'll chair, which means he's doing the things in terms of organizing the meeting, pre-meeting, and also actually managing the meeting on the day that they meet. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Am I allowed to second?
You can second.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Town administrator is not here today, so we will not have a town administrator's report. Council members, I'll start with Chris. Any comments, updates?
I'll start.
Dan?
Yeah, up on the, oh, it's not down. It's coming. I just want to mention the fourth quarter highlights of what the Arts Council has done. It's coming?
It's there.
Oh, it's there?
It's there.
Okay.
We got it in front of us.
Okay, sorry. I can see it. You can't see it, right?
No, they can see, it's on the screens behind you.
Okay. I'm catching up with technology here, yeah. Anyway, 1,100 and almost 1,200 tickets were distributed for the fourth quarter. It was a busy quarter, 7 programs. 5 of them were completely without cost to the residents and guests. More than 500 property owners are now registered for resident access, where they can just go online as soon as the registration is open. And our electronic ticket system works really well and saves a lot of confusion and a lot of time at all ends, including when you get to the theater or the church or whatever we're hosting. It's just easier to get. You show them your ticket, we click them in, and off we go. There were 5 different types of events this year, so we're covering the waterfront relative to the kind of music the kind of entertainment our clients want to see. All of them have been great, and all of them almost all sold out. I do want to thank the people who allow us their venues. That's one of our biggest challenges, finding places to put different audiences. The Keo Island Resort has been very helpful to us in giving us access to their venues. We use, as you know, many churches. We use also the Seabrook Clubhouse has been helpful to us for some of the events. Anyway, it's working out really well at this point in time.
Where was Liquid? I saw the film's video from Liquid Pleasure. Where was that held?
You know, I don't know because I didn't go. Where was it? Sanctuary.
Do we have any
One of the first times.
Do we have any charges coming back for destruction or anything?
Roger, did we destroy the sanctuary?
Because I saw the film.
The bill's on the way.
I saw the films, and I'm worried that there may have been damages we're going to get hit up with. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Only one going back. Oh,
I was going to mention one other thing.
yeah.
We're noticing at BZA, Board of Zoning Appeals, and you see it in planning stuff too, the number of requests we're having from homeowners who have some either erosion going on relative to the marshland and so on. So I am meeting with the head of the Planning Commission to talk about, do we need to begin a broader marsh edge planning effort so we're not going lot by lot and figuring out what to do next. So that'll be underway shortly, and that becomes important, I think, as we go forward and the tides begin to erode away at the land that we have. So,
okay. And I just want to add one comment back on the Accommodations Tax Committee, because I noticed Island Connections was here. I made the point that in how important Bill Lazard was to the committee and how much we thank him for his efforts. And the same thing with Dan Halby. Dan, I don't know in total how many years Dan was on the committee or chaired it, but it was a while, and he put in a lot of effort. I tried very hard to get him to do it one more year, but he's gotten onto one of his regime boards now, and I think he has his hands full. So equally, I want to really publicly thank Dan for all of his work on that committee. With that, we will then go to citizens' comments.
Wendy Kulik, 38 Marsh Edge Lane. All of my comments relate to the town retreat that was held last week. First of all, it was patently clear from not just the agenda but the materials and the discussion that there was a lot of time and effort that was put into this, and that the town council views this, as it should, very seriously, and that came through loud and clear. Secondly, I wanted to thank Craig for allowing me to ask questions or provide historical input, information and input, because there really isn't any place there. And my only suggestion would be to provide some official vehicle for that in case there's anybody else. Of course, there were so many people who were there, but in case anybody else decides, you know, at future retreats.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will be my last one. Thirdly, what came through loud and clear to me was education, education, education is critical for residents and people who visit Kiowa or rent out their properties, but everybody involved with Kiowa. Education. I mean, we've been here 30 years and there are still people who don't know what the town does, what the community association does, what the resort does. So, a la Jonathan Swift, I have a modest proposal. I don't know that this would actually be viable. I have zero idea what it would cost, but I figured let me throw it out and you can either say, yeah, she's been drinking heavily again, or gee, maybe we ought to look into that. And that is...
Or the answer could be both, right?
Charleston County a number of years ago went to a consolidated 911 center so that when a call comes into 911, the dispatcher knows exactly to whom a call needs to be referred and takes care of it quickly. And so my suggestion, if it's at all viable, is that the town create its version of a 911 center, only obviously not for emergencies, but for all of the calls. You know, the Community Association website has a thing, Just Ask. You can, you know, lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, but if there were a phone number, different from the town, different from the Community Association, I don't know whether it would be a viable thing for the resort to participate, but it might be something to consider. So somebody calls this central number, and immediately that inquiry or that request is referred to the appropriate entity. As I say, I have no idea whether it's viable, but I just thought I'd suggest it.
Thanks.
And, you know, let me say, I mean, I share the concern about how to best communicate to people in this community. I think when you see the next town notes, you know, every quarter I write a little mayor's corner, and that's communication is the subject of my little blurb this time around too, with the fundamental question of, with the amount of communication that the town provides, Kika provides, the resort, the developers, the conservancy, when you see how much information is disseminated in this community, you still have so many people who feel like they are out of the loop and come back and go, how come I never heard about that? And I think we have spent some sort of time trying to work our way through why that happens and what we can do to deal with it. And you know, Stephanie Braswell and I were just talking before this meeting on taking the list of all of the things we talked about last week at the planning committee and walking through, you know, what are the communication challenges for each one of those. So Wendy, I share the concern. You so often see people who they don't pick up the phone and they don't call the town, or they don't call Kika, they don't call the obvious source of the answer. And sometimes I don't get it, but it's a problem, and I think we need to keep looking for some solution. So, yeah. Any other citizens' comments? All right. Then with that, we have exhausted the agenda. So, do I have a motion to
Adjourn, so moved.
have a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I don't know who generated that. I don't know.
I have no
Never heard
idea.
of it. Never knew it was coming until you said it.
I have no idea.